When the farmer comes to town with wagon broken down, oh, the farmer is the one that feeds them all. If you'll only look and see, I think you will agree that the farmer is the one who feeds them all. Yes, the farmer is the one, the farmer is the one, lives on credit till the fall. When they take him by the hand and they lead her from the land, and the middleman's the one that gets it all. When the lawyer hangs around and the butcher cuts a pound, oh, the farmer is the one that feeds them all. And the preacher and the cook, they go strolling by the brook, but the farmer is the one that feeds them all. Oh, the farmer is the one, the farmer is the one, lives on credit till the fall. With the interest rate so high, it's a wonder they don't die, for the mortgage man's the one that gets it all. When the banker and the when the banker says he's broke and the merchant's up in smoke, they forget that it's the farmer feeds them all. It would put them to the test if the farmer took a rest, then they'd know that it's the farmer feeds them all. Oh, the farmer is the man, the farmer is the man, lives on credit till the fall. With her pants all wearing thin, his condition it's a sin. He forgot that there's the man that feeds them all. By the way, this song was sung by Pete Seeger, but it's actually written in 1874 because the condition of farmers has always been this case. So I'm going to wait a little bit longer as we're... How many people do we have so far, Rachel?
A little over 30.
Okay, well, I'll do a couple more verses and then we'll get this, we'll get the meeting started. When the farmer comes to town with a wagon broken down, oh, the farmer is the one that feeds them all. If you'll only look and see, I think you will agree that the farmer is the one who feeds them all. Oh, the farmer is the one, the farmer is the one, lives on credit till the fall. When they take her by the hand and they lead her from the land, and the middleman's the one that gets it all. When the lawyer hangs around, the butcher cuts a pound, well, the farmer is the one that feeds them all. And the preacher and the cook, they go strolling by the brook, but the farmer is the one who feeds them all. Yes, the farmer is the one, the farmer is the one, lives on credit till the fall. With the interest rate so high, it's a wonder they don't die, for the mortgage man's the one that gets it all. Oh, the farmer is the one, the farmer is the one, lives on credit till the fall. With her pants all wearing thin, his condition it's a sin. They've forgot that they're the one that feeds them all. Thank you very much. Thank you. And so I believe, oh, wait a second. I believe it's time to start the meeting. I think we've got most everybody here. By any chance, I can't see, is John Fulop in the mix at the moment?
Yes, he is.
Excellent. Well, we're going to start off. I'd like to welcome and introduce John Fulop, the president of the Berkshire County Land Trust, to say a few words regarding the challenges of our time. Take it away, John.
Anyway, I'd like to welcome all the members and guests of the Berkshire, all the Berkshire Regional Community Land Trust, the Community Land Trust in the Southern Berkshires. And I'm not sure about this, but this is close to the 40th meeting of the Community Land Trust in the Southern Berkshires. It's only the 10th annual of the Berkshire Community Land Trust. So at least half of our organization has been around for a good many decades. And our Berkshire community shares many projects or many problems with other rural areas, typical of other rural areas. Aging population, lack of affordable housing, jobs, lack of diversity, and agricultural security. And the pandemic of the last 2 years has really magnified the problems. And the media has highlighted them for the public. The additional stress of climate change will increasingly create a more urgent need for food. And a well-established agricultural base here in the Berkshires is essential. Historically, the Land Trust has been an affordable housing and agricultural security. A prime example being the Indian Line Farm in South Egremont, which, by the way, was the first CSA in the country. So today's focus will be on creating secure farmland for young farmers. Together with 2 other nonprofits, Berkshire Agricultural Ventures and Berkshire Grown, we've created the Harry Conklin Fund, which seeks to identify and establish secure farmlands for young farmers who wish to move here or are already here. Molly Comstock of the Colfax farm, which lost its lease, was located in Alford. And searching for a new location, preferably one with 10 flat acres and water and electricity available, a house and a barn would be a plus. Molly will lead the agricultural conversation. She will be joined by Anna Houston and Eric Suquet, both young farmers. The workforce co-housing discussion with its own agricultural component could also work as the largest CSA, with the housing an integral part of the plan. So let's get started. He's our genial host again, Rob Putnam, to lead us on.
Thank you, John. Yeah, I'm, by the way, to introduce myself, I'm also on the board. What I'd like to say is that just as a quick review, I'm sure everybody knew him, but I'd like to just bring this up. Harry Conklin passed away on July 8th, 2021, but his lifelong commitment to this community carries on in the form of the Harry Conklin Fund for Farmsteads. His love of agriculture began on his family's dairy farm in Ashley Falls in the 1940s, when he and his sister were already working on the family farm. Harry was born in 46. So essentially, he served on the boards of the Community Land Trust in Southern Berkshire and the sister organization, the Berkshire Community Land Trust, for 4 decades. In 1985, as John just mentioned, he joined with Robin Van N to form the first community-supported agricultural farm in this country at Indian Line Farms in South Egremont. Robin had a vision, and Harry helped to give structure to that vision, a vision that has continued to grow. Now CSAs are synonymous with Berkshire County, and our CSA farmers are essential workers in the Berkshire food economy. The impetus for the Harry Conklin Fund for the farm was the loss of the lease of Colfax Farm and the recognition that Molly Comstock and other farmers might be land insecure. The Berkshire Community Land Trust is seeking donations of land or donations of money to purchase land to resettle Colfax Farm. But Molly has said this should not be just about her. There are multiple small farmers in Berkshire County who are land insecure. Consequently, the Berkshire Community Land Trust has initiated the Harry Conklin Fund for Farmsteads to address a problem and to honor our longtime friend and colleague, Harry Conklin. Harry's, it's an initiative, as John said, a collaboration between Berkshire Community Land Trust, Berkshire Agricultural Ventures, and Berkshire Grown. So essentially, the concept of the farmstead is used deliberately. A farmstead, as John was just alluding to, includes a home, barns, sites for greenhouses, plus flat land for growing. Successful small farmers generally live on the farm where they are overseeing intense production, such as Indian Line Farm in Egremont. So where do we stand with this fund to date? I am very happy to say the fund has raised $45,000 to date from $20 donors. And I just learned that today, an additional $10,000 was donated, bringing the total up to $55,000. Not only that, but additional donors have expressed interest in gifting further funds when a property is identified. This is truly people coming together to support what is totally vital And as a central part of that song that I just sang, the farmer feeds us all. And I think that this is an important thing that's happening. So I'd like to turn this over to Molly Comstock, coordinator of the Harry Conklin Fund for Farmsteads.
Thanks, Rob. Nice to see everyone's faces here. Some I know and some I don't. Thank you so much for joining us. As Rob mentioned, the support from the community has been overwhelming regarding my own personal situation, but also it's a great honor for me to be able to highlight that this issue affects more than just me, and that hopefully between us all, we can find some solutions for many farmers and maybe make the Berkshires more of a mecca for young people so that they can feel like they can have a life here, stay here, and farm here. So we are lucky to have two other farmers with us today to kind of highlight some of the challenges of farming in a insecure way. Anna Houston's here from Off the Shelf Eggs. They're a pasture-based farm raising chickens and sheep. And you could get their product, their eggs and their meat at the Great Barrington Farmers Market, but also at Guido's and Big Y and the Co-op. And we also have Eric Suquet here with us. He and his wife and Augie and Luna farm over in East Chatham, and they have heritage breed pastured pigs. And both of these guys use humane, sustainable practices and really care about the welfare of their animals and creating healthy soils with their farming practices. Anna, if it's okay, if you go first, and if you could just take a few minutes and speak to us about some of the challenges that you and Rob specifically face and what some of the solutions might change for you guys on your farm.
So my partner Rob and I run Off the Shelf Farm. We started it in 2018 after working on a couple different farms for a few years in this area. I have family who lived in New Marlborough. My grandparents, they both have passed away, but that's what brought me to this area. And we live in their house now, but their house has less than an acre. So nothing to farm where we live. So we lease, oh my gosh, I don't even really know how many acres we lease, but probably 100 to 125 acres all over South County, which is why I don't know the total because it's just too many little places to count. But everywhere from Division Street in Great Barrington all the way to the border of Southfield and Norfolk up here in New Marlborough, and just about anywhere in between that we can. I think one of the unique things, or just something different about Molly's situation farming vegetables, is that the land needs are so much smaller than pasture-based livestock. In order to do it well and maintain healthy soils and healthy animals, you really require quite a bit of land, which can be challenging in the Berkshires. So yeah, currently we have about 2,300 laying hens. This year we also raise 100% grass-fed lamb, and then we did almost 1,000 meat chickens. It's mostly just the two of us, Rob and I. We tried to have a full-time employee, and it wasn't for them, which, that's okay. So it's just the two of us for the most part. We do have some part-time help here and there when we can get it. So we don't own anything except for our animals and the equipment that we've built and bought over the past 4 years. But so I'm trying to think about where to start really, but as a farmer, the biggest issue for us not owning land is the inefficiency. We were calculating this summer, I think we probably drive almost 4 hours a day when we're in full swing, because depending on where we're at in the cycle of the fields, we could have animals in Great Barrington and we could have animals in Southfield, and that's a 40-minute drive in between. And we're super dedicated to what we do, and so we're often visiting animal groups twice, sometimes 3 times a day, to really do what we need to do. So that on itself is an issue, alone, that is a burden for sure. Not only is it time and labor, but it's also super expensive for our vehicles and gas. And, we're spending almost $15,000 a year on just gas, which is totally insane. Because big farm trucks are not fuel efficient. So when that electric Ford F-150 comes out, if we're still doing this, we'll be looking for that. So inefficiency. And then on top of that, just like the spread out nature of everything, is we're also not able to really install the permanent infrastructure that we would like. If we were able to be on a contiguous piece of land that we could put up infrastructure that would work for us, things like permanent fencing, water. We currently truck water everywhere, which is probably about 300 to 400 gallons every day. We're driving all around. Those things would majorly cut back on our labor and the efficiency of our whole operation. And then I think a couple other sort of, more obvious things is just, it really stunts sort of our growth and what we're able to do and what we would like to be able to do, because our land situation is so, I guess insecure might be the right word. I sort of feel uncomfortable saying that it's insecure, but it's not permanent, and Molly's situation is a perfect example of that. Even if you do have a written out lease for I don't know how long your lease was, 20 years or something. It's still not your land at the end of the day, and the owner can take it back. So that sort of, I guess insecurity lends itself to wondering how to grow, or if you should grow, and who will be with you for the next 60 years. Will these landowners really stick with you? What's going to happen to them? So yeah. I think also, something that my partner and I are thinking about right now a lot is the big picture and the long term. And, we are farmers who hope to someday be able to retire, and we don't want to die on our farm, like, feeding chickens until I die. I don't. I want to do this. I want to grow food, but I also want to, build a sustainable life for myself and for my partner, and hopefully a family, and not having anything to fall back on literally feels like a major barrier to that. And we have our business and we've built, but we don't have land. We really truly cannot do that. And we need a lot of it. So it's not just finding a couple acres, So all that said, we love what we do, and we're so lucky to live in New Marlboro and to have found we have a lot of acreage right around where we live, which is really amazing, and we're super grateful for that. And we're constantly talking to people and trying to secure more land. And maybe Molly and Eric can also attest to that. Maybe especially animals, people, it's a big responsibility and liability to have animals on land. So but we're really lucky to work with who we work with, and that's a really wonderful bonus, actually, is having the relationships with the landowners that we wouldn't normally have. And we do love that part of it. And yeah, I don't feel like I was very eloquent, but
no, that was great, Anna. Thank you. I think you illuminated a lot of interesting things that I saw a lot of people nodding their heads, or like faces of awe at the 4-hour driving, and some of the interesting challenges that you guys face. Thank you so much for sharing all of that with us.
Sure.
Just so everyone knows, we're going to have a time for questions, and I think if you want to start putting them in the chat on the side, and we can address them after Eric shares with us their experience. Eric, do you want to take it away?
So my name's, first of all, I want to say what Anna's doing, I don't know, I want to underline it, like the idea of driving 4 hours a day to properties near and far to check on animals is so very admirable, and so well, not admirable. It's admirable that she's putting in the effort, but I don't envy the task. Having animals is stressful enough. Doing it that far flung is really something. So just so everyone's aware of what a big deal that is. My wife and I started Graylight Farm in 2015. She had been farming a couple other farms before that, mostly as a vegetable grower. I was basically a complete newbie. She kind of tricked me into farming, I like to say. We looked all over for a lease. We were actually living over in like the Rosendale area, like near Woodstock and that on the other side of the river. And we looked all over for a lease. We found one in the Hillsdale area. On paper, it seemed great. Our initial meetings were good and the land worked for what we wanted to do, which at the time was we were focusing on a vegetable CSA, and then I was kind of trying my hand at pigs because I hadn't really had much experience with them. I basically done 2 pigs just for ourselves and our wedding, and then kept doubling every year. But so we leased that property for, I think we did just 2 seasons there, and it was, and we found, and there wasn't housing. We found housing nearby. And even that, I have to say, that's why I commiserate with Anna. Like we were like 15, 20 minutes away from the animals. And there's a psychological thing that I found very hard to get over, of not being near my animals, like not being able to know if there's coyotes or whatever, if they've not broken down the fence or so. That's something to keep in mind, how important housing is. Because there's a lot of land potentially out there, but there's very little housing. So anyway, the lease, I don't want to go into too much detail, but it didn't work out. There was personality conflicts and just conflicts of need, of what we needed and what they needed. And we tried very hard to make it work there, but it did not. We even went through mediation, the whole thing, but it just wasn't going to work out. We were very lucky. We met someone in the area who had a big interest in sustainable farming and pigs in particular. And she kind of just randomly reached out to me, and we developed a friendship. And so our second year there, I was actually able to move a bunch of my animals to her property. And that relieved a lot of stress and made things a lot easier. And she was very generous with that. But we realized that leasing wasn't for us. So instead of trying to find a new lease, we looked to purchase land. We found, we're currently on 12 acres of land in East Chatham. Say about 6 of that is appropriate for livestock. 2 of it's, maybe 1 or 2 of it's appropriate for vegetables, which we're not doing right now. We're mostly livestock, or all livestock at this point. But we've been here for 4 years, 4.5 years, almost 5. And we're realizing we hit the limitations of what we can do on that much acreage. That's not enough acreage to do livestock at any scale that is sustainable as a business. We did about, depending on how you count it, about 60 pigs this year. And it was too many for this property. It's to do it in a way that's responsible to both the animal and the land. That said, we happened into this amazing situation where the woman who I mentioned earlier, who let us put some animals on her land, approached us and is selling us her property at a dramatically lower than market value price. because she doesn't need to make the profit off the sale of the land, and she supports what we do, and wants us, is entrusting us to take care of the land, basically. Like, it's been in her family for years, and she wants it farmed. She wasn't, she tried farming herself, wasn't for her. So we got very, very lucky, and we're moving to that property. Knock on wood, all goes well. We're moving that property after the new year. And I guess the main reason I'm on this call is while I got very, very lucky, and we got very, very lucky, that doesn't, if not for that luck, which to me feels like magic, it feels like winning the lottery, I don't know how our business could survive. Or, you know, in order to grow our business, we need, like I mentioned, a very large piece of land. And with land prices what they are in the area, that's not attainable for most, I'd say, any small farmer on their own. The only reason we could even afford the 12 acres we're on is because I also have a career as a freelance creative, and I still do some of that, and I had savings. That's the only way. We couldn't have afforded even the 12 acres, which even that wasn't enough. So I am passionate about farming. I am committed to sustainable farming and humane animal treatment. But we're in a situation in this area where it's not possible without either a community such as yourselves, or help from local governments. Something that it's not really possible to do just by pulling up your bootstraps. I think that's about it.
Thanks, Eric. I think my connection got a little unstable there for a minute. Can everyone see and hear me? Okay. Yeah, I asked Eric to join the call just because it's, I think your experience is something that highlights what a solution is, and that is hopefully generous people in our community seeing what it takes as a farmer to make it work, given that the margins are so small, and that I think you're right. There is some luck and magic that needs to happen in order for a farmer to survive on the income that you earn. And it takes someone else's generosity to help it happen, whether it's your family member or someone in our community, taking a risk and being generous so that a farmer can continue. Because I think with the work being hard and the money not being a lot, you need some special circumstance to help you make it. I do see that Ashley from Lumbet's Freedom Farm joined the call, and I really was hoping to have you join this call. Would you take a few minutes, if you feel comfortable, to express any thoughts you have about land insecurity?
Sure. Thank you so much. It's really beautiful to hear you both, Anna and Eric, speak, and I feel really honored to be here representing our farm. And I'm echoing some of the things that you shared. And I really feel grateful in this first year in the farm of having the relationship with Racebrook and Casey and his family, Casey and Sadia, that have created the opportunity for us to be on the land. We have a non-traditional agreement that we're currently moving into, but like these issues of not really owning the land and being at the mercy in some ways of the landowners is really, really big. And also echoing the issue of housing as a huge issue. So as we were coming into this region and also seeking and looking for support, particularly from Black and Indigenous folks of colors and those in the farming industry, we found that a lot of folks weren't able to support us in the ways that they wanted to because of the lack of housing in the area and the lack of resources for farmers and those who want to help farmers to actually stay in the region and show up. And I would additionally add that, farming is farming. So, I really hear you, Eric, when you're talking about having these other things. I'm also a practitioner and facilitator at Minka Brooklyn and do other work as a trauma therapist and things that have helped to support this. And really, this project is all self-financed between myself, Diara, and Steph. And, without the generosity of Casey and their family, we wouldn't have been able to actually access the land. And we were actually on a search for land for quite some time, and also came with this like great blessing that Casey and his family had this farm that was not being tended and used. And we were able to then really literally plant the seeds of a vision that we have been having for over a decade to steward land, and create spaces of sanctuary. So for me, for us personally, it's really about how do we create avenues of access to the land, and by the land, I'm also talking about not only the food, but the energy and the spirit that being on the land provides, and the healing that it actually provides. Just being in that region for a short time, it's wild to see that there are so many folks that actually have hundreds of acres of land that are not actually being tended, but are being held in a way where certain people have access and others don't. And so, just thinking about that in terms of, land trusts and the importance of it in creating ways for people to actually access the land and tend to it in a good way, in the ways that we want to, and cultivate a right relationship with the land. It's not just about us coming in and farming, but it's okay, how do we come in and respect the land, respect what has actually been cultivated before we got there, and building and expanding upon that. And so I would say that I think that land trust, and there's also another model that I can't remember right now, but there are, these models that are emerging so that we can actually, as a Black woman, as a Black Indigenous peoples, that we can actually access and tend to and restore the right relationship between ourselves and the earth and the animals and the creatures that inhabit the earth. And so, yeah, thank you so much for the opportunity to speak a little bit. I'm sure I could probably say more, but I'm just really happy to be here and hear you all. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ashley. Listening to the three of you talk, I always love being with my farmer contemporaries, because it's just so inspiring. Like, we all have these, like, we just are really compassionate people who really care about something that I feel that's so important, feeding people and creating access to land. I just think that we're, if I'm allowed to do this, I just think that we're an important part of our community, and I'm really proud to hear your stories and share this space with you. And it's, you all touched on the housing, which is really great, because I think it can be a little misleading when you drive around Berkshire County, and like you say, you see these huge pieces of open land and they don't seem tended to or cared for, and you could look at them and be like, well, what's that about? Why can't we farm there? And a lot of it is under different conservation or under an agricultural protection, which does give it some access to maybe larger dairy farms that are in our area, but it does make those pieces of property are pretty hard to access as a small farmer. And then it's all well and good if you can find all the land you can lease to pasture your chickens everywhere you need to. But if you have nowhere to live while you raise those chickens, it's just not going to happen. So, that's the whole reason for the Harry Conklin Fund, is that hopefully we can create, in the dream world, we create this inventory in the Berkshires where there's pieces of land with housing attached, and a young farmer can move here and say, I can make this work. It's possible. And I think we're at the beginning of that. I think we can make it happen. So we don't have too much time, but I wanted to make sure that we have time for people to ask questions, because I'm sure there's things I've missed, or there's things that you might be curious about. But before I do that, meetings like this can be challenging, because then it feels like, well, what do I do? And I think the important thing is to talk to as many people as you can, your neighbors, your friends, even, people who don't live in the Berkshires, to raise awareness around the idea of like how we like to drive around and see our bucolic environment, sheep grazing, and we like to go to the farmer's market, and we like to go to restaurants and see that there's food from a local farm, but that there's a whole story behind that of a person driving 4 hours a day, you know, or, you know, like being far away from your animals. It's really nerve-wracking. So I think the more of those conversations we can have with more people, then people will know that like, oh, I do have this extra land that I don't use. Maybe I can donate it to the Harry Conklin Fund, you know, or I'm planning how, you know, how to deal with my financial future, and like think of the Harry Conklin Fund as an option. So I think talking is one part of the solution, looking at land in a new way, and you know, sharing that with us at the Harry Conklin Fund so that we can reach out to possible landowners and see if there could be possible places for farms, and then, you know, donating if you can, please do, and please encourage people you know to do that too. Thank you, all three of you, for speaking and sharing your stories, and thank you everybody for showing up and being a part of a community who cares about your local farmers. So I think it's a little hard to see everyone's face if you raised your hand, but if you wanted to type questions into the chat, but yeah, I'd just love to answer any questions.
There are actually two things, Molly. One is that Ron Banks asked, in Berkshire County, how does the tax benefit of putting land into conservation easement compare to the tax benefit of committing the same land to farm?
There may be someone else on this
screen. Yeah, hi.
Yeah, thank you.
Hey, this is Kathy Orlando. I'm on the board of the Community Land Trust. So there's actually two different, several different aspects there. One is property taxes. And property taxes, if the committing to agriculture relates to the Chapter 61A programs in Massachusetts, that's a current use taxation program where the Department of Revenue has said if somebody says that they are going to keep that in agriculture, the amount of real estate property taxes is reduced. That is something that is renewed has to be renewed every year. And in Massachusetts, there's a great aspect here where if it comes out of that program, then the municipality is able to recapture that change in taxes for a 5-year period going back. Then there's a separate piece in terms of conservation easements. Each municipality makes a determination about what a reduction would be, depending upon what that conservation easement itself says and what that municipality determines its impact on that land is. Then if you look at income taxes or estate taxes, that has to be permanent protection. So a conservation easement, which in Massachusetts is actually called a conservation restriction, or if it's specifically for agriculture, an agricultural preservation restriction, that is permanent, and that again will be dependent on an appraisal of that particular property, and it can reduce that substantially. So for a lot of people, especially if you have farms that have been in the family for a long, long time, that land can have increased in value so much that if somebody passes away, the estate taxes can be so much that the family has to sell it. So having put a conservation restriction on it or an agricultural preservation restriction on it and reduced it to its either agricultural value or its conservation value can actually help a family be able to keep that land. So complicated, but those, there's several different elements there. I hope that answers the question.
Thank you, Kathy. There was one other thing that came up. Ashley had something that she wanted to add into the commentary. Could you take that opportunity now, Ashley?
Oh yeah, I just wanted to mention, I wrote it in the chat, but the historical context of being on the land and like highlighting Mumbet and her life and legacy and her story is also so important to us in like what Molly was sharing about the stories and the relationship that we have to the land. So I just wanted to mention that. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much. And also, someone had wrote in that basically that had recently heard that farmers in New York State are rotating animals from land to land. And Eric had something he wanted to add about leases.
Yes, just so when you talk about tax breaks and the like, I didn't mention that we looked high and low for lease situations, and we met a lot of landowners who, quote unquote, wanted farmers on their land because they wanted the agricultural exemption, or they just like the idea of having farmers on their land. But I really want to emphasize how fraught that is, and how most people don't realize what that actually entails. And we talked to, I don't know, maybe over the years, maybe a dozen different people who had seen, had land they had available and they wanted farmers on it, but they don't realize, okay, well, is there water there? Can we dig a well? Like, is there electricity there? Can we plow up this, X number of acres? Like, can we put up fencing? And like, once you start talking about the details of that, fewer people are actually interested in that commitment. And I don't know, I'm sure there are leases out there that have worked and do work, but it's another kind of thing that the magic has to happen, and it has to be very, you have to have a good relationship with that landowner, and the landowner has to be very, very committed to the plan. So from my personal perspective, tax exemptions and the like aren't quite enough to solve this problem, because there's a lot of people who want that tax exemption that aren't really prepared to follow through, a 10 or 20 year commitment to a farmer, which is what it takes.
Well, that kind of wraps up in terms of our questions here.
I'd like to say something about leases while we're on the subject. We haven't mentioned the fact that the land trust leases its properties to farmers, homeowners, whatever. And the difference is that although the people who are leasing do not own the land, the lease is a 98-year-old lease, which should cover most of everyone's life here. Also, the improvements made on the property, everything, including the treatment of the earth, wells dug, houses built, all belong to the people who lease it, so that when and if that sale takes place, the leasees are the ones who can sell that and get whatever profits are to be gotten out of that. So there's a vast difference. I mean, not all leases are the same, essentially. So that's.
Thank you for that, John. Appreciate that. It appears as we've come to the end of our agenda, but I would like to reiterate about the Harry Conklin Fund Farmstead and how you could make donations to it. The donations actually go to the Berkshire County Land Trust. In other words, that's where they have to go. But if you want it to be earmarked specifically for the Harry Conklin Fund for Farmstead, please indicate that on your donation. If you have 1,000 or so acres that you would like to give to the, that would be, we'll accept any acreage actually, with perfectly anything. We're comfortable with any sort of thing. But if you have a county or something like that, it'd be very helpful. And as you can see by all these wonderful young farmers who are on this call, we've got people who could lead this thing forward. We've got people who could, that can bring this community to what it could possibly be. The whole concept of self-sufficient farms and things of that sort is, we've got to be returning to certain aspects that this Berkshire County had back in the 19th century. We were able to support ourselves, and I think we're going to be able to do it again as we move forward. So I will reiterate the song that I started the whole thing up, because it's the farmer that feeds us all. And you can just, we'll close the whole meeting in. When the farmer comes to town with his wagon broken down, oh, the farmer is the one that feeds them all. If you'll only look and see, I think you will agree that the farmer is the one who feeds them all. Oh, the farmer is the one, lives on credit till the fall. Then they take her by the hand, they lead one that gets it all. Well, the farmer comes to town, the farmer comes to town. The farmer is the first who grabs the blade. Yes, so we're in sin, the condition is a sin, but we can't forget that it's the farmer feeds us all. Thank you all for joining in the annual meeting, and we'll see you next annual meeting. Or those who would like to volunteer and participate, we'll see you at some future meeting over the next few months.